Welcome, welcome everybody. So we're ready to get started in just a few seconds, just to let everyone in. So, just give me 1 second because we have some kind of sound issues. Right, that's great. So can you let me know in the comments, guys, if you can see me and hear me okay before we get started? Hi, Maddie. Hi, Nassim. Lovely to see you on the screen, guys. And as I normally say on this kind of webinars, you're invited to be with your cameras on or off. It's completely up to you, whatever works best for you. Hi, Donna. Good morning. And as we wait for everybody to join, I just want to ask, oh, hi, Matiba, lovely to see you again. So lovely to see familiar faces from all over the world, which is really great. Hi, Ricky, lovely to see you. And lovely to meet you all. So, speaking of meeting each other, would you like to write down in the comment section, where do you live? Where are you based? Just for us to get to know a little bit better. It will be really, really nice. Yes, I can hear you. It's good you can hear me nice. Well, Alena from India, amazing. Vietnam. Andrew from the UK, same. Andrew, I'm based in the UK in London. We have Sophie from Glasgow, Frida, wow, Frida from Indonesia, Maggie from Scotland, Ricky from London, Jonathan from London, UK. Guys, for those of you who are in the UK, would you like to write down also the area? Just, I'm really curious. I'm based in Canton Town, so I'm always looking for new neighbors. And then Katerina Kasutaki, so lovely to see you here again, Katerina, from Athens. That's really lovely. And from Philippines. And thank you so much for joining again. Guards from the UK, because from India, Catherine from Scotland, Tatiana from Paris, Matiba from South Africa. Matiba, lovely to see you again. Nasir from Pakistan, Andrea from Cheshire, Mariella from... Can you hear me, guys? I hope you can hear me okay. Amazing. So we have Ricky from Tooting, amazing. Jonathan, Croydon, Nicholas Telford, United Kingdom, great. Hi, Ricky, I went to school with you. No way, guys, amazing. What are the odds, right? So, welcome, and I'm really excited for our today webinar. It's going to be about imposter syndrome, as you may know already. And before we get started, there is one thing I do on every single one of the HR webinars I organize. And the first thing I normally do is I invite participants, I invite you guys to set your own intention. And what I mean by that, what are your expectations from today? And what would make our today webinar an amazing experience for you? And I'm going to share my own expectation, my own intention from today. So my intention is to share with you as much as helpful kind of information and practices that will make a difference, that will help your employees with their well-being and mental health. And I want to share tips and hacks that are actionable, easy to follow, and that will create a nice kind of conversation between us and among us, because it's not just a one-way thing. Throughout the webinar, I will ask you a few questions because I'm really curious to find out what do you think about this topic and what are your best practices within your business. So I'm going to share my screen with you. There will be a presentation, and as you all know, our topic for today is imposter syndrome at work. And I want to introduce myself very briefly for those of you who don't know me. My name is Alexandra Kafka, and I am a corporate well-being expert, the founder of Urban Yoga Lab in Oxygen, and I am a former PR executive. Now, 4 years ago, I experienced burnout because of imposter syndrome, and that led me to take an early career break. And maybe this is the reason why I don't know what happens, and I'm getting muted automatically. Sorry about that, guys. So what happens about imposter syndrome is the main reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I experienced that myself. And since that time, I've traveled to more than 40 countries around the world as a corporate well-being expert, learning about mindfulness, learning about well-being solutions. And my main purpose was to hack sustainable high performance via mindfulness. So I had the opportunity to immerse myself in different cultures around the world. And in the next 60 minutes, what we're going to explore together is how to help your professionals to prevent and overcome burnout. Now, just a few words, a little bit about the Urban Yoga Lab in Oxygen. But before we talk about this, can you share in the comment section, what is your main intention for today? What would you like to gain out of our today webinar? What are your expectations? I'll leave you a few seconds to process, and if you can share with me in the comments, that would be great. Why are you here, right? What is your main goal? What do you want to gain out of this webinar? If you can share with me in the chat, that would be really, really great. So again, I'm gonna share my intention. My own intention is to share best practices that can add real value. That's my aim. Oh, nice. So Sophie Woochen said self-confidence. I love that, Sophie. And to be honest, imposter syndrome is all about self-confidence, how to boost our self-esteem, how to start feeling worthy again, for those of us who don't feel this way. And Angelina Papagiannopoulos said, how to overcome the imposter syndrome. That's great. Ricky, learn anything that will help me to push my business on without feeling like I don't belong in that industry. Ricky, that's the thing. That's a common theme when it comes to imposter syndrome, this sense and a lack of sense of belonging when we feel like we're an outsider. So how does it change? Andrea said, learn something new. Dia, practical tips to overcome imposter syndrome. Muriel, so lovely to see you here. It gives me so much positivity and beautiful vibes. Thank you so much for joining. Know how to speak openly about it at the firm. Gemma, practical tips that will help with imposter syndrome. Maggie, new ideas to assist my clients in dealing with imposter syndrome. Andy, how to better support people. Ibrahim, believe in yourself. Yes. Firda, I want to help myself and teammates to overcome the burnout caused by imposter syndrome. Nasir, to motivate team and improve team performance. Elena, for developing my personality. You know what I love about sharing our intentions? It's interesting to see how each one of us is here with a different kind of agenda. with the different kind of things in mind, and that brings this variety of different kind of intentions, which is something I really love. So now about Urban Yoga Lab and Oxygen. You might have heard about us before. We're an occupational health provider based here in London. So what we do is helping employees to radically take care of their well-being, and we help businesses to learn new ways on how to become employer of choice. So in terms of what we offer, these are workshops and webinars and wellness classes. So we build employee well-being programs. So far, we have done this for more than 50 big corporations worldwide, including Royal Bank of Canada, Wells Fargo, Soho House. We have worked in 25 industries, operated in 9 countries, deliver more than 10,000 sessions to over 15,000 of employees around the world. And we're really proud of making that impact. You know, we haven't been in this market of employee well-being for such a long time, right? We've just been a few years. Our impact is really phenomenal. So, today, as you know, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. And according to research conducted by HubSpot, 80% of men and 90% of women at work suffer from imposter syndrome. And it's interesting, you know what, when I talk with new partners, when I talk with new clients, the number one thing that I hear when I talk about imposter syndrome is that most of those business leaders I talk with, they think that imposter syndrome is an exemption, is something that happens to just a few employees within their business. Or they feel like imposter syndrome happens to a few employees who are not engaged, who are not career driven, who are not that good, let's say. The reality, though, is different. And it's interesting because imposter syndrome, it's something that can happen to everyone. And when I say everyone, I want to share just one kind of minute video with all of you to give you an idea of how that can impact everyone. So it can impact people on in sports, people like Serena Williams. It can impact people in the world of, you know, acting, like Tom Hanks here, the video that we're going to watch here together. It can impact mega celebrities like J-Lo, for example, but also some amazing scientists. You know, Albert Einstein used to suffer from imposter syndrome. So when we talk about it, there's so much.
If there is ever, and we can do all the caveats about your lucky life and how wonderful it is to be you, and I know you know that. But is there ever kind of that burden of being Tom Hanks, or America's sweetheart?
I don't think there's a person on the planet Earth, no matter where they are, unless they are sociopaths, that don't have a moment somehow where they think, am I a fraud? Am I actually what this is? Am I actually being true to myself enough to feel as though at any given moment I truly am present?
So excited for the whole interview, and we will have Savannah's interview with Mr. Hanks tomorrow.
So as you can see, if even Tom Hanks suffer from that kind of syndrome, you can imagine us, you know, normal, common people, how we can actually be affected by the syndrome. So the question is, if that what happens to Many of us, in fact, I was reading a research the other day, which shows that 70% of us at some point in our lives, we will experience imposter syndrome, no matter how resilient we are, no matter how balanced, grounded, it will happen. It's inevitable. So if that's the case, then how do we prevent? As one of you said earlier in the comments, it's not just about overcoming imposter syndrome, but the most important thing is about how do we prevent it, right? So give me 1 second to check here something with the internet. Let me close those windows. So I am going, before we move and talk about imposter syndrome, I will have one of my team members sharing a link in the comments where we're going to do a quick poll just to check where each one of us stand when it comes to burnout, imposter syndrome, and mental health at work. So the link is on the, yes, it's on the comments below. I'm going to copy and paste it also. So if you can just copy and paste the link and just include it in your browser. And we have 5 quick questions. So let me know if you can see the link and if you can just copy and paste it in your browser, if everything is okay with that. And when we're ready, Michaela will start with the poll. So yeah, let's start now. Let's see. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and Michaela will start sharing hers. So we will be able to see the results on the screen of the poll. And it's a really quick poll. It's more about, I'm really keen to find out what most of you think when it comes to imposter syndrome. So the very first question is, how many employees do you have in your business? And it's interesting, if you can just click the option that, is relevant to you guys. And for those of you who didn't have enough time to copy and paste the link, please let me know in the comment section so we don't move to the next question yet. Amazing. So, okay, let's give it a little bit more time. Option 1, Andrea. Yeah, some of you might want to vote on the comments, and that's perfectly okay. Amazing. Super. So most of us, we own or we are part of small, medium businesses. Okay. Let's move to the next question. Are you currently running any well-being programs about imposter syndrome? It might be about burnout. It might be about stress at work. And if no, please don't feel bad about it. I've read a research recently conducted by Eagle Hill Consulting, and 36% of employees said their organization is doing nothing to help with employee burnout. So you're not the only one. It's really very, very common, okay? Yes, and as I expected, most of you, you do not kind of run any programs about imposter syndrome, and this is okay. It's important to just acknowledge that this is the reality for most of us, right? And let's move to the next questions. If you organize well-being programs within your business, what's the first thing you typically want to achieve? Is it employee retention, greater productivity, greater employee experience? I might be becoming an employer of choice, team bonding, right? So let me know what is the option that resonates most with. Amazing. Beautiful. Employee retention, interesting. Greater productivity. Amazing, guys. So speaking of challenges, what is the greatest challenge when it comes to imposter syndrome in your business? Might be also about burnout, right? What's the greatest challenge? Employee turnover, sick leave, hiring and training, replacement cost, company culture. And 5. Thanks for sharing on the comments, Andrea. Angelina, I'm sorry that you're not able to log in. Company culture, employee turnover, the number 1. That's what I was expecting, to be honest. This is something I hear a lot. And most of my clients, this is the number 1 challenge when it comes to imposter syndrome and burnout, employee turnover. Company culture is another big one, I would say. And the last question is, from 1 to 5, how high it's on your priorities to prevent employee burnout, to prevent employee imposter syndrome? For some of you might not be able to log in because there are some kind of tech security issues when you watch this webinar from your business laptop PC. So that's the reason. So from 1 to 5, it's 5 for many of you. 4, 3, yeah, that's great to know. So thank you all for sharing. That was really insightful. So I'm going to share my screen now, but I want to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. And the internal struggle we all experience if we suffer from this syndrome is real. When we suffer from this syndrome, we tend to sabotage our decision making. We tend to feel not good enough most of the time. And in many cases, we feel like a failure. And that hurts and can affect every single aspect of our lives. So I know this because I used to live this way. I used to feel this way. So in our today webinar, I want to talk a little bit about the self-limiting thoughts and beliefs, because those are very interconnected with imposter syndrome. And I'm going to go back to share the presentation with you all and to share the mini agenda for our today webinar. We're going to talk about what does imposter syndrome feel like. We're gonna talk about the main causes and triggers. Then I want to share with you what are the 5 types of imposter syndrome. How do we recognize whether our employees are at risk? And then I'm going to share our best practices to overcome and prevent the syndrome. Now, what is imposter syndrome in general? And how does it feel, right? How does it feel? In most of the cases, when my clients or when their employees ask me or one of our experts this question, our response is that imposter syndrome involves feelings of self-doubt, involves feelings of low self-esteem and personal incompetence. And the person who suffers from imposter syndrome, doesn't matter how accomplished they are, doesn't matter how many years they work in one single field, doesn't matter how much recognition they get, they still feel like not good enough. So, and then, as I said before, the struggle is internal in most of the cases. The person who suffers from imposter syndrome, they feel trapped, feel stuck, and they feel like it's normal for them to feel this way. There is no way out. So this kind of feelings associated with imposter syndrome can make it very challenging for us to set limits. It's difficult for us to commit to healthy work-life balance. And how does it normally start, imposter syndrome? It starts with a project. So you might have been assigned a new project or a new task. You might just started a new role, just got a new opportunity, or you might just have launched a new business, something new. So that's the first step. The second step is that anxiety takes over. It's like a cycle. Anxiety takes over, and there are two main scenarios when this happens. Either we tend to procrastinate until the very last minute, either we tend to overplan, over-prepare, overanalyze to the point of stress. So, and then we complete the project. And everyone is really happy with the results. And then we feel a really kind of a brief satisfaction. We feel like a brief sense of relief and success. But then we try to rationalize our success away by saying to ourselves, oh, I actually got lucky this time. Oh, thanks God, nobody noticed that this was really kind of bad quality. What I delivered wasn't good enough. Thanks God, nobody saw it. And when we have, we tend to have those kind of thoughts, the next step is that we start doubting ourselves, like even more. And then we start worrying about what is going to happen next time. That sooner or later, somebody will find out that we are not good enough. And then we get assigned a new project, and then the cycle goes over and over again. It's like a loop, really. So, and we might find ourselves trapped in this kind of cycle that continues to loop over and over and over again. And this is how I used to feel throughout, I would say, 10 years of my life. And this is part of the reason why I'm so passionate about this topic, because it took me 4 years to decondition myself, to reprogram my mind, and now to try to help as many employees as I can to not have a similar experience, or to learn how to overcome it. Now it's interesting because many of my clients, they ask me, but Alexandra, wait a second. Is it possible to help our employees to that extent that they will never, ever, ever experience, feel like an imposter? Is it possible? Is it possible to always to make them feel confident, to help them keep their self-esteem always high, to not get stressed? Is there any kind of toolkit that can help us to achieve that? And the answer is no. The external circumstances, they will make us at many points in our lives to feel like an imposter, and this is okay. But what we can actually achieve is, when we feel like an imposter, to talk ourselves down faster, to not stay in this internal struggle for a long time, but to learn how to overcome it by accessing a series of tools that they can help us to distress, to decompress, to eliminate the thoughts that are not serving us. So now I want to talk briefly about the main causes of imposter syndrome. And I'm going to share my causes, my own triggers, and those causes and triggers that I have seen over and over again, working with more than 50 big corporations. These are the main causes I keep saying over and over again. The one is the environment. This is the number one. I remember myself in the past working for a very big organization. Every single time I was walking towards my desk, all I could see around me were British, blunt, white people, amazing, like-minded professionals with this great, beautiful British accent. And I couldn't see around me any people that they sound or look like me. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm such an outsider. I don't belong here, you know? And that was actually had an impact on my confidence. And that was my trigger in terms of my imposter syndrome. So what I normally recommend to the clients, to the big companies I work with, is to create a friendly environment, an inclusive environment where your employees feel that sense of belonging is incredibly important. The second cause is about feedback. And I'm pretty sure many of you might have experienced that before. Giving and receiving feedback can be a nerve-wracking experience. And especially for new managers, it's really hard for them to know how to do it in a way that, you know, helps both parties in a compassionate, empathic way. And as business leaders, we cannot expect our managers to know how to give effective feedback. It's really important to be there to help them, to support them. And then the third reason, the third cause and trigger is about people who don't know how to ask for help. We do have employees within our business, and I used to be one of them, who do not know how to say no. They're people pleasers. They don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to have a difficult conversation. And in many cases, they don't know how to ask for help. So how do we help those employees to change those patterns and to be kind and compassionate towards themselves? So it's interesting because every single time, as I said to you before, I talk with new partners, with new business clients about imposter syndrome, most of them, they think that this is an exemption. And then I share with them some statistics, because imposter syndrome, it is not an exemption. It's something that happens all the time. So in terms of statistics, 70% of people, they will feel like an imposter at least at once in their lives. According to Innovate MR, 65% of professionals today suffer from imposter syndrome. Among millennials, we have 27% of them who suffer. And then according to KPMG, 85% of women who suffer from mental health issues, burnout, imposter syndrome, they never talk about it to anyone. So they don't share anything about this experience to friends, colleagues, a mentor, nobody. And then only 5% of businesses in the UK address imposter syndrome with their staff. There's lack of awareness. Then we have among women who suffer from imposter syndrome, 50% of them are working moms. Are working moms who don't know how to create work-life balance, and they feel guilty because they feel like they never give enough back to their business, and that's really challenging, right? So all those numbers definitely show that imposter syndrome is not an exemption, but is the rule. It's a rule, and a high majority of our employees actually is at risk. I'm gonna talk to you about it even more a little bit later. But I have a question for you, and this is, how do you help your employees within your business to prevent and overcome imposter syndrome? So before I start sharing with you our own best practices in Urban Yoga Lab, what do we actually suggest, recommend, organize for our clients? I really want to hear from you guys. What are your best practices? What are the key ideas that you normally launch, implement within your business that you have seen that they work really well? If you can write in the comments, how do you help your employees with this challenge? Or even yourself, right? You might share with me something that you do and help you to distress, or something that you suggest and share with your employees and helps them to distress. So let me know in the comments what is the number one thing you do within your business that help your employees with imposter syndrome, or with burnout, or with stress in general, you know? Oh, Maggie said, I have worked with a mindfulness coach. Beautiful, Maggie. And this is something I will mention later on. It's very interesting that you said that, because mindfulness can be a game changer when it comes to imposter syndrome. Chris said, I think, Chris, it's lovely to see you again, by the way. And thank you for joining. You've been in a previous webinar and we had such a great time. So Chris said, I think a key element is to develop empathetic management, which will allow people to express these feelings without a sense of being exposed. How beautifully said. Creating psychological safety is so important. Ricky said, I'm a one-man business. I have to help myself, and that will come through understanding the problem and learning how to overcome it. So here I am. I have learned that honesty with self is one of the most powerful tools. Honesty, Ricky, that's wonderful, and thank you for sharing. And Muriel, talk openly about mental care, but nothing specific about imposter syndrome. Talk openly is a really, really big cornerstone when it comes to how do we overcome imposter syndrome. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with me. Now, most of the HR professionals I work with, they ask me, Alex, how do I recognize whether one of my employees is at risk of imposter syndrome or not? How do I recognize, how do I see the signs? Is there any way? And what I normally share is the 5 different types of imposter syndrome, as those have been introduced by Dr. Valerie Jung, who is an expert, who is an imposter syndrome expert. Now, as I share those 5 types with you, you might recognize yourself with one of those types, okay? I personally do see myself, my old self at least, in more than one of those types. So the number 1 type is the perfectionist. And the perfectionist actually is the person who focuses on delivering an exceptional experience. They normally end up in a project that ends up being a phenomenal success. They are very good in creating a big win. The perfectionists cannot tolerate mistakes. Their standards are very, very high, and to them, failures equal shame. So when things do not go according to plan, they feel ashamed, they feel guilty, they feel like a failure. And when they do not succeed, they consider themselves lazy and they beat themselves up. Does it remind you anyone you know among your friends or your relatives or your employees? It's interesting because for the perfectionist type, their coping mechanism is over planning, over preparing, and over analyzing. The second type is the superwoman or the superman. The superwoman wants to be good at everything. So that type of person validates their worth based on how many different things they can do successfully all at once. They want to be great at everything, and the superwoman wants to be a great partner, a great manager, a great friend. And when they fail at one of those roles, or they are not that good, they feel like an imposter. In their mind, they feel like they are naturally gifted to be great multitaskers. And when this doesn't work this way, what they do, their coping mechanism is neglecting their basic well-being needs in order to work more. The third type is the natural genius. That type of person is normally a person who had an early career success or an achievement since they were a kid. Like this type of person is a super kind of charismatic, talented person. But because of that, they feel like they can achieve anything they want with ease and speed. And when this doesn't happen, they consider themselves as a failure. The natural genius imposter syndrome is someone who might have done something great, but when they fail at something, they do not accept it as something normal, but they consider themselves as a fraud. Now, their coping mechanism is that they are hesitant or skeptical to try new things. We have the soloist type. That type of person loves micromanaging, loves doing everything on their own. And it is difficult for them to share responsibility. And it's really hard to ask for help when they need it. They feel like they need to be good at everything and work very well independently. But when they need to work with others, when they need to ask for help, they feel ashamed. Then we have the expert. The expert type of person is the person who wants to have access at every single little detail before they start working on a project or on a certain kind of task. And it's interesting because it's, as you may imagine, it's impossible to acquire all the knowledge, and that leads them to feel like they don't know everything and makes them feel really kind of ashamed. So this type of person is in a constant process of learning and development. This type of person, and this is their coping mechanism, they're always doing another course, another qualification, just to feel worthy enough. And in terms of how do we overcome imposter syndrome, I'm going to share with you briefly 5 practices that we have actually implemented with businesses in the past to help them to learn how to better help and support their own employees. As I mentioned earlier, one of the most important things when it comes to imposter syndrome is feedback. So many of our managers do not know how to give constructive, effective feedback, but I believe that you will agree with me that it's in the nature of our job as managers to give both positive and negative feedback, because that will help our employees to bring their best self at work. That will help us to develop the team and to help them to progress, right? So it's really, really important to learn how to give feedback in a way that the other person feels seen, heard, respected, appreciated. And I see that over and over again, that many business leaders expect from their managers to know how to give feedback, just without training. But constant training about this thing, it's so important. So how do we help our managers to become better managers? By providing them training in terms of how to give feedback, following specific or accessing a variety of frameworks, methodologies, different type of approaches, so they learn how to feel more comfortable with giving feedback to others. So one of the things we do in Urban Yoga Lab with our clients is just learning by sports coaches. So in this world of sports, giving and receiving feedback is a fundamental part of an athlete performing really, really great, right? So how do we help our employees via feedback? It's the same way like coaches help their elite athletes to become better. So what we have done before, and one of our best practices that have been really great, is inviting elite athletes. We have in our team, actually in our network of experts, Olympian athletes, elite athletes, and coaches in sports psychology who come and deliver a series of workshops to businesses we work with, and they share the secrets, the hacks, the best tips. And trust me, giving effective feedback is a transferable skill. So when managers will learn this by coaches, by athletes, this can be very motivating and energizing. So if you want to implement such an initiative, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to share ideas with you or to even help you organize it. We have done this successfully. Just an example, last year, we invited an Olympian athlete, Stella Ledaki, to deliver a series of workshops for Titan, as a construction company, really big company based in Greece. So best practice number 2 is raising awareness. When I experienced burnout 4 years ago, I spoke with a therapist. And that therapist said to me that I was suffering from imposter syndrome. When I heard those words, I was shocked because I've never heard about this before. I didn't know what does it mean. So my question to you guys is, how many of your employees are actually aware of what is imposter syndrome? What are the signs? What is burnout? How do we process chronic stress and anxiety? So it's so important as a business leader, as an HR professional, to raise awareness. And some of you might ask me, how can we actually do this? One of you mentioned that earlier. It's really important to encourage our employees to talk openly about not just their imposter syndrome, but any kind of mental health struggles they experience, and not necessarily with us, but to encourage them to do it with their friends, with the relatives, with their mentors. And one of the main ways that you can raise awareness about imposter syndrome is self-assessment tools. Because what we have discovered in Urban Yoga Lab, working with many clients, is that when we give the option to employees to assess themselves and identify the early signs of a burnout or imposter syndrome via checklist, they feel safe and more open to do the test themselves because they know that nobody else will access this information. So what we do is offering those imposter burnout self-assessment checklists, and then they can see the score, and then they can access their interpretation of their score and what are the next steps, what they can do to alleviate that syndrome. So this is something we did before, sharing those toolkits with clients in hospitality, such as Conrad Hilton and Hyatt Resorts. So these are the QR codes if you want to download and maybe do this, test yourself later on to see, are you at risk or not, right? So, or share it with your employees and be like, just as a gift, because it is a gift to help your employees to understand and better become aware of their own triggers, their own kind of patterns, their own kind of negative self-limiting thoughts and beliefs. So now I'm going to, don't worry if you didn't have the time to get the QR code, because I'm going to share this presentation with you all at the end of the webinar, okay? So you can get access to all those tools if you want to. Now, I have a question. Have you ever heard about EFT tapping? Anyone? You can let me know in the comments. It's a technique, okay? So just to help. So there is no, Maggie said no. Anyone, even one single person? I see just one single person, but is there any other people who have ever? Okay, Sophie. Sophie Muriel Priest, beautiful guys, amazing. So EFT tapping was the #1 thing I got recommended by my therapist myself when I experienced burnout 4 years ago. And I want to talk about it because imposter syndrome is all about being trapped in our own self-limiting thoughts and beliefs. And those thoughts and beliefs, they have been imprinted in our subconscious mind during our childhood. Now, I think you will agree with me that we have very limited control when it comes to our subconscious mind. And this is why it's so difficult to change those self-limiting thoughts and beliefs. So EFT tapping is a technique based on acupressure that science reveals that soothes a certain area of our brain, which is called amygdala. It's the area of the brain where we experience stress, anxiety, worry, fear. And by soothing this area, we release tension. Now, why am I sharing this technique with you? Because in Urban Yoga Lab, we launched a series of workshops with an EFT practitioner who actually shared this evidence-based technique with employees of our clients. And the beauty of this technique is that all you need to do to run is just a few workshops within your business. So your employees learn how to tap on their imposter syndrome, how to tap their meridian centers of the body to release stress and anxiety. And this is a beautiful technique that they can access throughout their entire lives every time they feel stressed or anxiety. So I highly recommend you this practice. It's a great gift. As I said before, all those tools are gifts. You give them to your employees and you help them to create a work-life balance, take care of their well-being needs, become more aware of their triggers. Okay. So I'm not going to share the last two practices because I'm conscious of the time, but I'm going to share this presentation with you so you can access these techniques later and you can implement them within your own team. So we talked about today the main causes, the triggers, and the best practices when it comes to imposter syndrome. Do you have any questions? Any questions, anyone? In case you have questions, Michaela is going to include all the links and the comments, so you can contact me and you can connect with me on my social media, send me an email, anything you wish. Beautiful, guys. So, and I just want to say big thanks to everyone who participated. Just a few very quick announcements. I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you. Anyway, Michaela is going to share those links in the comments. But I just want to say that on 18th of October, I'm going to run another free HR webinar about Gen Z and well-being, how you can help your younger employees to navigate stress and anxiety. The second announcement is that next month, I'm going to launch my Zen Warrior program. It's an 8 weeks program I run for hybrid employees to help them to navigate stress and anxiety. And you are invited to join this program. You're invited with your employees, with your teams to be part of this program. And the link is again in the comments below. The last announcement, for those of you who stay till the end, I'm going to share my employee well-being calendar. It's a calendar we share with long-term clients and partners for free. So if you want to receive it via email, just write the letter E in the comments and my team is going to send this to you today. Also, if you want to book a free discovery call with me, I'm more than happy. It's going to be a 20 minutes free discovery call. And I would love to have the chance to meet you and talk with you about your own employee well-being strategy. So please feel free to book a call with me. It's free. You have nothing to lose and we'll have the opportunity to get to know each other better. So thank you so much all for joining today. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time, your energy, and thank you for sharing. So I'm going to go now, guys. And yeah, please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Okay, thank you all. Cheers. Bye.